Debbie seemed so smitten with her new boyfriend Tony, but then everything went 0 to 100 when Debbie said she would move in with Tony after only being with him in person for like 3 or 4 days. And now everyone wants to know the $1,000,000 question: are Tony and Debbie still together? Well, I don't want to waste any more time. Here is the deal. It appears, guys, yes, Debbie and Tony, we think, are still together, and it looks like Debbie actually, we think, went through with moving to Canada. So here is the rundown. After 13 years of being single, Debbie has finally decided to move on, and that was when she found her new partner, Tony. And Tony is a guy that was introduced to Debbie by one of her friends, and the two seem to have hit it, off right away. And I'm honestly not sure how I feel about this relationship because, I know I'm not the only one. A lot of people have been worried about Debbie and how fast she's been moving with Tony, especially after she announced that she was going to move to Canada to live with him, even though they've only seen each other in person a handful of times. And honestly, it all just seemed way too rushed. And I get that she really likes Tony, and trust me, I do too. I think Tony is a really nice guy. But to describe him as your soulmate after such a short time and to move in with him right away, I just don't know if this is the best decision. And Debbie's son, Colt, has his reservations too. He was questioning Debbie about all this when she told him about her plans to move in with Tony, and Colt seemed pretty worried about that. And I'm kind of with him on this. I mean, there's just not a lot we actually know about Tony. I mean, we know that he was introduced to Debbie by one of her friends who lives in Canada, and she messaged Debbie and told her that her landlord, Tony, would be perfect for her. And soon after that, Debbie and Tony started talking on the phone, and things moved pretty fast after that. And Tony's obviously not just a landlord, though. According to Debbie, he works remotely in computer networking, and he's also apparently about a year older than Debbie, and they often joke about this, but she said that this made her a cougar and him a boy toy. And Debbie also said that they were so much alike and that it was really strange how, they got along so well. And it's obviously, it's pretty obvious that Debbie is really into Tony. I mean, she had all these nice things to say about him, and sometimes the way she talked about their relationship makes it sound like they're just perfect for each other. And Debbie said that she wanted to fall in love for the last time, and that she wanted to spend the rest of her life with someone that cared about her as much as Harley did. And then she said that she hoped that Tony was the guy. But when Debbie talked about Tony to her friends, she also said that he was cute and had a nice voice, and he was very sweet. And she also claimed that he was really easy to talk to, and that he was a very caring gentleman. And like I said, on paper, he sounds perfect, but I don't know how much of this was just initial infatuation, because Debbie did actually admit one thing that made me pause for a little, because she said that Tony wasn't actually her ideal man, and this is apparently because she usually tends to go for much bigger guys. But the biggest red flag about all of this was when she admitted that she was worried that the relationship was too good to be true, and I honestly think it's just too soon to be treating this relationship as seriously as they've been doing. I mean, they've barely spent any time together in person, and considering that Debbie basically admitted that Tony wasn't even, really her usual type, I mean, I would say that maybe they should spend more time together, before she moves in with him, because it's just such a massive step, and I don't think it should be rushed. But obviously, it's their relationship, and none of us can tell Debbie what to do. But I get why Colt was worried about this whole thing when she told him. He definitely had a point, and I actually did some digging about where their relationship is right now, and obviously the show is behind on real life. And I was really curious to find out if Debbie is actually, moving up with Tony, and if things actually worked out for them and they were still together. And the interesting thing about all of that is that Debbie's actually been super cryptic about her relationship status on her social media. And I mean, this is probably because we can't really spoil anything, to ruin the show, but it did make me kind of suspicious, and you would think that maybe she'd at least drop a hint or something about her relationship status, but she hasn't really done that. And this doesn't mean that I wasn't able to find anything, though, because I went on Reddit, and what I found was actually pretty shocking, because it looks like Debbie might have actually moved to Canada to be with Tony, and someone spotted Debbie and Tony together in Vancouver, and they were on the public transportation. It was way, way, way back in January of 2022, and obviously she might have just been visiting him at the time, but allegedly she was also spotted at a couple of stores around the neighborhood that Tony lives in. And again, this doesn't really mean that they're definitely living together, but getting public transportation and going to stores definitely feels kind of like they live there-ish. especially if Debbie was seen shopping alone, because I feel like if she was, just there for a short visit, Tony probably would want to spend as much time as he, could possibly with her. So I don't necessarily think she'd be out and about on her own. And obviously this all happened back in January, which was months ago. So they, easily could have split up since then, but it looks like they haven't, because Debbie's actually been seen around Canada a bunch of other times, and someone apparently saw her back in August, and then someone also spotted Debbie and Tony in a supermarket in Canada on October 8th. But that's not all either, because there was also this photo from October 6th that someone took, with both Debbie and Tony, and apparently this person was just flying to Vegas that morning, and he met the couple and took the photo with them. And I actually saw this photo on Reddit, and it does look like Debbie and Tony might actually still be a thing. And I mean, at this point, we know that they've been spotted together a bunch of times, and it seems like it's mainly always been in Canada, either in Vancouver or in Port Coquitlam, which is where Tony lives. And this is obviously still doesn't mean that they actually live together. I mean, like I said, it could be that Debbie just flies over to Tony pretty often, but at this point, I think this honestly sounds less likely than her living with him. The plan was for her to move there, and if she didn't do that, I just feel like it would have been, because they realized they had some problems. And if that was the case, I don't think they'd necessarily still be together. And plus, from all the posts that I've seen, they're always together in Canada. And we know that Tony allegedly works remotely, so he could easily work from anywhere other than his home. And if they weren't living together, I feel like he'd also visit Debbie, and we'd see more photos and mentions of them in the US. But other than that time that they were spotted in Vegas, I haven't heard anything about them outside of Canada. So I really do think that they're both still together and living together in Canada. And despite everyone's fear that Debbie was moving too fast, it looks like maybe she was right to follow her gut, because from what I can tell, she and Tony seem pretty happy together. But what do you guys think? Do you think Debbie actually moved to Canada? And do you think it was the right decision? Guys, let me know in the comments below.